Yep. Inside, I want to kill myself. We are on an 0-7 run over the last 2 days. After tonight, it was just complete bullshit. So that's how I'm going to start off this show. Horrible Sunday, 1-5. I don't even know what to tell you about that. I just don't want to do this anymore. I have never seen anything like this, man. With the slump continuing, 2 straight losses, not a good day at all. 0-4. I just have not had a good season, man. What can this slump that I'm on? The slump continues. I've reached a new peak, actually. I'm going to burn my Bruins hat, man. I don't know what is going on with the Bruins. March 8th, is that what it is? I don't even know. It's March 9th, I think. Who even knows, man? I don't know what day it is anymore. I don't even know what day it is anymore, man. Back with you after the worst day that I could possibly have. Back with you, as I always am. Until I die, at least. 0-2 yesterday, and yesterday did not go well for me. 0-5. The worst month that I've ever had in my 18 years doing this. I don't know what to even tell you about this anymore. Broke the slump yesterday as the slump just continues. The slump continues. Somebody fucking kill me, please. I don't even know what I should do at this point other than potentially end it all. What's up, everybody? It's Toad back with you. Toadstool Sports, Thursday, February 5th. Thanks for everybody who hung out for the Super Bowl show last night. So, talked about a bunch of props. I was like seizing out or something. I don't know what was going on. I gave out a play on the side, gave out one player prop, and gave out a couple of game-style props that I pretty much always have on my cards. So, gave out the Super Bowl plays. One thing I should clarify, I guess, and I guess I will do it again on Sunday, is that the play on the side, I just make it like a normal bet size, just like it's a normal bet. You don't want to over bet on the Super Bowl. And then the props, I make each one of them like a third of a play, basically, so the 3 of them kind of add up to basically one play in this case, if that makes sense. So I should have clarified that last night. I don't know. I was out of it. Tyson, what's up? Kyle, what's up? Thanks for hanging out. All right. Yesterday we went 4-3. It should have been a better day than that. It started out really good with an outright Minnesota win. Good thing I added that to my card. That was an easy win. They were winning pretty much the entirety of the game outright. They won outright. Kansas City was the biggest source of frustration yesterday. They were winning that game outright for almost the entire game. There's no way they shouldn't have covered that. It got down to the end of the game. They were still winning late in the game, and then it was tied in the final minute. And I'm like, at this point, just lose the game by 2. Like, whatever. Just cover, lose. I don't care. As long as you cover, get out of there with the cover. No, it goes into overtime. And then they actually, I think, had the lead in overtime. So I'm like, okay, this should be fine then. No, they wind up losing by 7 in overtime. There's absolutely no way that they shouldn't have covered that. They basically had a wire-to-wire cover in that game. I'm fucking pissed off. Kansas City fucking sucks. Fuck them. Northwestern, that game pisses me off way less. They lost by 40. The game was over like immediately, so I'm way less pissed off about that. It's one that you know is wrong right away, and that's it. All right, fine, it's over. Northwestern couldn't hit any shots in that game. The game was dead. And then Oklahoma State, they got an outright win. So it was all over the place yesterday. But the 2-2 in college basketball, I think, probably resulted in a slight win because there were 2 outright winners there as pretty big underdogs. And I recommend sprinkling the money line for that reason. Both of those hit, Oklahoma State and Minnesota, at pretty decent prices on the money line. I would have said, yeah, like 10% on those money lines there probably was appropriate for those games. Oklahoma State had the lead. They had a big lead early in the game. They blew the lead. They actually fell behind. I think they were still covering, though. I think they covered wire to wire. Wound up getting the outright win anyway. They came back, had a nice second half, and won the game. So I'm happy about that. Hockey, we went 2-1. Nashville, Nashville put themselves in like a 2-0 hole right away. They got out of it. They wound up actually taking the lead at one point, 4-3, and then immediately threw that away. They were able to send the game to overtime, which that's pretty much what you can ask for with an underdog. If they lost the game in overtime, high-scoring game, I'm not too thrilled about it. They kind of got outplayed in the game. The other hockey plays both won pretty easily, though. Utah and Seattle won outright. Not really much of a problem there. So if you just went money line on that, you would have had the win as well. So those both won. And then we move on to today. Today is Thursday, so it's a junk college basketball card with mostly poor conferences. And I do have 2 plays in those bad conferences. I have a couple of leans that were close to being plays. There are a couple of big conference games that I don't really have strong opinions on. It's the last day of hockey before the Olympics. I do have 1 hockey play, and then NBA, I almost skipped the board again. Like, NBA, there's just nothing going on that I like. I'm going to have 1 play in the NBA and hope that it works out. The NBA is very, very difficult right now, especially because we're hitting the trade deadline. So you have all these, like, moving parts, and it's, like, really difficult to handicap some of these games. So it might have to wait for the dust to settle in the NBA. All right. I'm looking at the NBA right now, but I always do the NBA last. All right, let's get into it. College basketball. I'm going to hope to not take too long with college basketball and skip some of these games that are not of interest and not TV games. We do have a few 6 p.m. games. I usually talk about these kind of isolated games here. Vermont at Maine. Vermont, I expect them to bounce back here, man. They just took a loss to NJIT at home. Vermont were pretty big favorites in that one. And we know Vermont is like the best team in this conference still, even though they're behind UMBC now based on tiebreakers. But Vermont were double-digit favorites here, 13.5-point favorites. They shouldn't have lost this game. This NJIT team is not good. I don't care what their conference record says. They're not. I think Vermont will bounce back. And if you look, they did already play Maine, and they did not do well. They beat Maine at home, but they were double-digit favorites in this game, 14.5, and they barely won the game. So that was one of my angles as well that I like to look at when you have the much stronger team, when they won but barely got by that inferior opponent. They usually do focus on the road. So there are 2 huge reasons why Vermont, I think, will actually show up in this game. Maine, I mean, they'll show up, sure. Vermont is that team that's atop the conference. I'm not going to say Maine's not going to show up here, but if they run into a focused Vermont team who's way better than they are, I think I would have to lean to Vermont. The line did drop from 8 to 7, but I think the only way that I could really go with that game is to lay the 7. And if Vermont was appropriately lined at 14.5 in that first game, that 7 seems a little bit low. I don't really think you give Maine that much of a home advantage, even though they do have the big inflatable lumberjack there, even though they're the Maine Black Bears. So that's that game. These American East games, I mean, I don't really have anything to say about these other games, to be honest, so I don't know. That Vermont game, at least there was kind of an angle there. 6:30 p.m. Fox Sports 1, Penn State at number 2, Michigan. We know Michigan's obviously the way better team, but Penn State might be in an okay spot to maybe look to take the points with them. They finally got a conference win, and that was a winner I gave out on the show. Penn State caught Minnesota in what I thought was a pretty bad spot, a sandwich spot. They got the job done because I think Minnesota had just played Wisconsin really tough on the road, and they had last night's Michigan State game coming up next. So Penn State got the win. We got the win with them. Now, I think that they will show up for this game at the very least, and they do have some momentum now. And when you get that first conference win finally after you were 0-10 in conference, finally getting that win might actually give you some confidence, but it will it gets that monkey off your back basically, so you can play looser. So that might be the case here. Now, there is one concern, Michigan might show up in this game because Penn State actually almost beat them at home earlier this season. Michigan was a big favorite in that game, obviously, double digits, and they almost lost the game. So Michigan might remember that, and that might actually be a reason why Michigan might take them seriously here. But other than that, I do not like the spot for Michigan. They're coming off big wins over Nebraska and Michigan State, and then they have Ohio State on deck, and they did beat Ohio State once already, but that's still a bigger opponent. I mean, Michigan-Ohio State is still a thing, even though it's not football. So there are reasons why they still might overlook Penn State. I can't really get there with this one. I would probably lean towards Penn State getting the points, but I'm not going to do anything with it. The money is completely disagreeing, by the way. And again, there is that angle, or there is that one reason why maybe Michigan will show up here, but I don't know. I kind of think that the fact they're coming up that huge rivalry win over Michigan State kind of negates that. They're down from 25.5 to 25 here. Maybe a little bit of a big number there. But Michigan plays fast, too, so they do have the ability to put up a lot of points and maybe cover a number like that. 69% of the tickets are on Penn State, which I don't really buy that. I don't know what public bettor is going to come in on Penn State in this game at all, even if the number is this big. 66% of the cash on Michigan, though, so the market read is saying Michigan. I slightly lean the other way, but I don't have a strong feel for that. West Virginia at Cincinnati in the Big 12 on ESPN2. Don't really have a strong feel for this game either. I think an under might be the way to look at this game, even though I don't do a whole lot with totals. This total, I mean, it opened at 123.5 for a reason. It's up to 127.5, but I think maybe the number got like dummied up or something, because it looks like the real money is actually kind of hitting the under now at that higher number. And these are two teams that are not good offensively. West Virginia plays really slow. Cincinnati plays good defense. Both teams are good defensively, actually. So there are a lot of reasons, I think, to look towards an under in this one. But, again, I'm not really a totals guy. West Virginia, they may show up focused in this one because they did just take a home loss to Baylor. So maybe they will show up. They actually already beat Cincinnati once at home by 2. I believe West Virginia was probably about a 3-point favorite in that game. Let me see. What were they? Actually, no, they were a 1.5-point dog. I don't know what I'm thinking there. So they actually covered. So actually, I guess it's technically a revenge spot for Cincinnati here, I guess, if you want to call it that. Not really a significant one, in my opinion, though. West Virginia might have a little bit of a look ahead to Texas Tech, but I don't know, because they had that ugly loss at home to Baylor. Maybe they'll bounce back from it, but because they did beat Cincinnati and that Texas Tech game is bigger, there might be a little bit of a concern that maybe they'll overlook Cincinnati. And Cincinnati hasn't been playing well. They're at 500 now. They just got blown out by Houston, but I'm expecting them to show up with focus again here. One concern with looking at Cincinnati, though, is the public might see, oh, Cincinnati just beat Baylor, who just beat West Virginia, so that means we should play Cincinnati. So the public might do that transitive thing. So I don't want anything to do with this game, especially not from a side perspective, although because of that West Virginia look ahead and the little bit of revenge that might be there for Cincinnati, I would actually probably lay it with Cincinnati if I was going to play the side. They're down from 6.5 to 5, 6 to 5.5, excuse me, but 61% of the tickets are on West Virginia, so the public doesn't look like they want Cincinnati. 67% of the cash on Cincinnati, and it kind of makes sense that the public would not play Cincinnati here because they're going to see that number at 5.5. Why would you want to lay 5.5 with a 500 team against a team that's above 500, right? And the team that already beat them once, West Virginia. So it does look almost too easy to take the points with West Virginia. So for that reason, I probably would lay the points with Cincinnati. Again, I think under might be worth a look in that one. If we look at KenPom real quick on that one, yeah, he's got Cincinnati as a top 10 defense in the country, and they're outside of the top 200 offensively. They do play fast, but they just have a lot of problems on offense. And then West Virginia is also way better defensively, 33rd in defense, but outside of the top 100 offensively. So we have a couple of offensively challenged teams that are actually very good on defense in that game. So that's what makes sense to me there. Zach, what's up, man? Thanks for hanging out. All right. Up next, what do we have? We have some MAAC games here. Fairfield at Sacred Heart. I kind of looked at this one briefly because Fairfield, they just played a really close game against Quinnipiac. Well, not really close. They lost by 7. I think the game was pretty close down the stretch, though. Although they were only 2.5-point dogs. But Quinnipiac is still one of the better teams in this conference. So this game was really close with like a couple minutes left. So Fairfield was in that game. And I think they might even consider themselves to be a little brother now in that area of Connecticut because they're pretty close in proximity to Quinnipiac. Now they're coming off of that. They got to play Sacred Heart. They haven't played them yet this year, but they do also have Marist and St. Peter's coming up in their next 2 games, and both those teams are near the top of the conference. They're both some of the better teams in the conference. They actually already lost to Marist as well. So there's the potential. They lost to both of those teams already, actually. So there is the potential look ahead. So the concern here for Fairfield is that they might be in a sandwich spot here. For Sacred Heart, they did just lose to Merrimack, and that ended a 5-game win streak for them. And sometimes I don't like to play on teams that lost a win streak because it'll hang them over into the next game. So that might be the concern there. But I prefer Sacred Heart in this game if I was going to play it. They lost by double digits to Merrimack, so it might be more of a bounce-back spot for them. I worry about Fairfield being more of a sandwich here. And if people look at the line, like, why would Sacred Heart be favored when they have the worst record than Fairfield? They're below 500, and Fairfield's above 500. Well, some of that might be because Sacred Heart played a more difficult out-of-conference schedule because these teams have the same conference record. The odds makers are still telling you that Fairfield is the slightly better team, but in this spot, I think Sacred Heart does make sense, and the line does look a little bit misleading. The odds makers are telling you Fairfield is better, but not by that much. The line did drop from 2-1. Probably Sacred Heart money line would probably be the way I would look at that game. ESPNU has what is probably actually the best MAAC game of the day between Iona and Siena. These two teams are both in New York, I believe, somewhere north of New York City, I believe. I think these teams are pretty close in location. So there might be a little bit of a rivalry going on here. Iona did already beat Siena at home. So there's a little bit of revenge motive here for Siena. I think Siena is the better team, even though Iona has done well in this conference in the past, back with Richard Pitino there and stuff like that. But Siena is definitely the better of the two teams at this point, and Siena's been doing really well. Iona is coming off a loss to Fairfield at home. Iona was favored in this one. I think, they're only favored by like 1.5 or 2, though. But possible they were looking ahead to this game against Siena. I don't know, man. I mean, I think both teams will show up here. I think it'll be a decent TV game. Siena coming into this on a 5-game win streak, and they just beat Canisius in the last game, which is not a big deal. But they did already beat Iona, like I said. Iona beat them, so they might pay attention to Iona here. But there is the concern that they do have St. Peter's, Quinnipiac, Marist, and Merrimack and St. Peter's again in their next 5 games. That is a gauntlet in this conference, man. So part of the reason I think why Siena does have a really good conference record right now is they've played a lot of weaklings in the conference so far. And when they've stepped up in class, it hasn't gone well. Like, they lost to Iona, they lost to Merrimack. They did beat Marist, so there was that in there. But, I just don't know if we could totally trust Siena here, man. And I worry about the look-ahead spot there. So the money is indicating on Iona for what it's worth. Siena's a 7.5-point favorite, but 67% of tickets on them, only 57% of the cash. Low total in the high 130s. I would probably agree with taking the points with Iona in that one. Even though there is maybe a little bit of a revenge motive for Siena there. The look ahead does worry me a little bit, and the fact that I think maybe their conference record is not indicative of what they actually are. So that's kind of the way that I look at this. And Iona is still coming off kind of an ugly performance at home, losing as a favorite. So that's how I look at that game, I guess. Okay. Then we got what other games that I want to talk about here? I don't know. There aren't really too many games that are really of interest here. I could talk about some other ones if you want, but I don't really have strong opinions on very many of these. Stonehill and Fairleigh Dickinson was actually kind of an interesting one in the Northeast Conference. Stonehill, they just beat Lemoyne on the road. That was a pretty nice upset win for Stonehill. Lemoyne's been pretty good in the conference. It was only a 2.5-point upset, but I think it feels like it was kind of a big upset. Stonehill pulled into a tie with Lemoyne in the conference. Lemoyne, even though that line indicated that Lemoyne is not the better team, I think they are. So that was a decent win for Stonehill. And they have a huge game on deck against Long Island. So there is the possibility they overlook Fairleigh Dickinson here. Second straight road game here. And they did just beat Fairleigh Dickinson, only by 1, though, at home 2 games ago. So I don't know. Will they totally overlook Fairleigh Dickinson? I don't know, because Stonehill was favored and didn't cover in that game technically, but they're only a 2.5-point favorite or 2-point favorite. So these teams, they're all pretty much bad in this conference. Although Long Island is a bit above the rest, but I think the spot is not great for Stonehill really in this game. So I would lean to Fairleigh Dickinson. Fairleigh Dickinson just lost on the road to Wagner. Not a great loss. Wagner's struggling pretty mightily this year, so I think it does make sense that Fairleigh Dickinson, they kind of are in a revenge spot here. Stonehill coming off a decent upset and with a big game on deck. I would probably lay it with Fairleigh Dickinson. Well, actually, I would probably lay a money line because they're -2 here. You can probably find a pretty cheap money line on it. Total being so low at 129, getting them to just win the game kind of makes more sense. That's the way I would lean in that game, but that one doesn't make my card. The next game that I'm going to talk about does make my card, which is UMass-Lowell and NJIT. This is going to be one of the best bets. StreamYard, I believe, let me do. StreamYard just keeps fucking up, man. I'm fucking pissed. I'm sick of it. We're going to take UMass-Lowell plus the 1.5 here. Odds makers are already telling you UMass-Lowell is actually the better team here, despite what the records look like. So, like, who's going to want a team with the worst record, a worst conference record? It makes UMass-Lowell look like the worst team, but I'm telling you right now, they're not. We've tried to fade NJIT, I think, with some success and some failure this season, but I think this is a spot to fade them. And if you heard me talk about the Vermont game, you pretty much already know why. UMass-Lowell, they just broke a 4-game losing streak, I think, with a win over Maine. I like that because that kind of, again, it like ends that losing momentum for you. It gives you momentum, new momentum moving forward. It wasn't a win that's going to make UMass-Lowell overconfident, beating a Maine team that's not doing that well. So I think that's good, and that can give UMass-Lowell some confidence coming into this. This is also a road revenge angle for UMass because they lost at home already to NJIT. And UMass-Lowell were 8.5-point favorites in this game, and they lost. So that's another angle I like to look at. When a team was a fairly substantial favorite at home and they lost, that rematch on the road, if it's a second conference matchup, that road team is usually a decent way to look. So I think they will show up for this game. So a couple of pretty big positives for UMass-Lowell here. And then the biggest part of the situation is there's a huge negative for NJIT because they just beat Vermont, a third straight road game, and they upset Vermont. Like I said, they were double-digit dogs in the game. Vermont is the best team in this conference again. They've been pretty much the best team in this conference every year for the last several years, except last year they didn't win the conference. But this is a huge win for NJIT. Vermont kind of went cold from three-point range, so that was kind of part of the reason. NJIT did out-rebound. That was a close rebounding battle, though. But this is just a huge win for NJIT, man. I think they had the lead most of the game. They held on. Now they get this UMass-Lowell team they already beat on the road. Unfortunately, they only play Binghamton next, which is awful. Binghamton is the worst team in the conference. But even so, I think it is a letdown spot here with travel. The last time they were at home, they did smash Bryant. But NJIT actually hasn't been that good at home. If you look at their other conference home games, they lost to Maine and they barely beat New Hampshire. So UMass-Lowell is actually the best team that they're facing at home so far, I would say, because Bryant, UMass-Lowell, and Maine are all in the bottom half of the conference. So, so NJIT, they have not been tested on their home floor yet. Although, yes, they do have a couple of good road wins here in conference at least. But if we look at what Ken Palm has to say here, I know he's got UMass-Lowell outside the top 300. I get it. But he's got NJIT 7 ranking spots lower than that. UMass-Lowell, neither team is good. I get it. NJIT is actually the better defense here. I usually like to look for the better defense. But there's not that much of a disparity between the two teams. Both teams play slightly faster tempo, so that's not going to really matter. But what I think does come into play here is the luck index. Ken Palm has NJIT is the 7th most lucky team in the country, meaning that they've overperformed. Like, their record should be a lot worse than it is based on their statistics, their analytics, based on how many close wins they have, etc. Like, they've gotten lucky this season, whereas UMass-Lowell is on the other side of it. They're 233rd in luck out of 365, so they're on the unlucky side of things. So I like to look at situations like that as well. I believe he has this game as a 1-point game, one way or the other, so Yeah, we're going to do it. I like the spot for it as well. NJIT did creep up from 1 to 1.5, but we'll grab the points with UMass-Lowell. If for some reason they wind up being a favorite, it would be a money line on UMass-Lowell there. Whoa, sorry. I think they get the win there. All right. I didn't even know what other games that I want to talk about here. Northeastern and Hofstra. I mean, I know it's a Boston area team. I don't know if there's that. Well, actually, yeah, I guess this game is somewhat interesting from a handicapping perspective. Northeastern just did have a big game where they played pretty close at home against Charleston, who is second in the conference right now in the Colonial. I will continue to call it the Colonial. Now they get Hofstra. They do have a revenge game against Stony Brook on deck, and Stony Brook is third in the conference right now, so there is the possibility Northeastern just, that they kind of don't have it here against Hofstra. And as I've been saying, Hofstra is sneaky. They're actually one of the better teams in this conference. Like, power ratings-wise, I think they're probably second or third in this conference, believe it or not. But because of their record, they might actually be overlookable now. And with the spot that Northeastern is in, even though they've lost 4 games in a row, and you would think that they should come with focus here, I kind of worry about it, man. I kind of prefer Hofstra in this one. Hofstra did just break a 5-game losing streak, so they finally got a win, beating Monmouth. And now, I don't really see them overlooking this game at this point. I just see them having momentum coming into this. They don't have a big game on deck, I don't think, against Towson. They already did beat Towson on the road, so whatever. And they're kind of a mediocre team in the conference. I would look towards Hofstra in that game. They're very public, though. They're up from 9 to 10, so there was initially a line move on them, but 95% of the tickets and only 91% of the cash on them does make it look like they're a pretty public side, which would worry me a little bit, but if I was going to play that game, I would lay it with Hofstra. And then we have Stony Brook in this conference, who I just mentioned. Either we have the power ratings way off on Stony Brook here, or they're still not as good as they look. I think at this point, they've won 5 games in a row where they've been an underdog, including the last 3 on the road. Now they're back home. I would have to fade it, man, because I just don't see how you can continue winning all these games as an underdog like this, and now they're going to be a favorite. So that's another thing I don't like. When a team flips from being an underdog to being a favorite, it's like a different role, and now they are going to be required to win by margin. They're coming off that upset win on the road of Elon most recently. Now they're going to be a favorite against Monmouth, and Monmouth did just get blown out pretty much by Hofstra at home, losing by 16, so they might come into this game with focus. These teams haven't played each other yet, but I would have to fade this, what I think is kind of a fraudulent run from Stony Brook here. The money looks like it's coming in on Stony Brook. I don't agree with it. They're up from 3 to 3.5, 50-50 on the cash, but 79% of tickets on Monmouth. I don't even understand why that would be the case. Like, why would the public be coming in on Monmouth, who has the worst record here? So I don't really buy that. Market read does look like it's on Stony Brook, but I don't buy it, and I don't agree with it. Ken Bum has Stony Brook, by the way, as the 12th luckiest team in the country as well. So, again, that kind of bears out what I've been saying, that they're getting quite lucky in some of these games, and they're not as good as they look. Drexel at Campbell. This one almost made my card. I like how this sets up for Drexel here. Drexel just barely escaped NCAAB at home, and Drexel were like 7.5-point favorites in that game against what I think is the weakest team in the conference, NCAAB. So I like when a favorite just escapes. They continue their momentum, and they get kind of shocked back into focus in their next game. Now they're going to Campbell. They haven't played Campbell yet. But Campbell, they're coming off an upset of William and Mary on the road. That didn't end a long losing streak for Campbell, though. They had lost 5 games in a row, so I know sometimes when a team ends a losing streak, that will give them some momentum, propelling them forward. So there is that concern there, but that was a big upset over William and Mary, man. William and Mary's close to the top of the conference. They're kind of more in the middle of the conference right now, but they are one of the better teams in the conference, power ratings-wise, at least. And Campbell, that was like an 8.5-point upset, I think, for them. So we do have a situation here where you have a team that barely escaped as a favorite against a team that won as a pretty big underdog. So barely escaped as a substantial favorite, I should say. So I like Drexel in this game. This almost makes my card. Campbell down from 5 to 4.5 here. I wish Campbell had a bigger game on deck than NCAA, although I know I gave out the UMass-Lowell play because there was that revenge factor in there as well. 67% of tickets, 77% of the cash on Drexel. I agree with that. Drexel plus the points would be the way that I would look at that game. That is one of my stronger leans, man. That one is close to being a play for me. So I guess do with that information what you want. But yeah, I like how that one sets up. CBS Sports has William & Mary and UNC Wilmington. Pretty good game, man. William & Mary, like I said, power ratings-wise, they are one of the best teams in this conference. They've lost 2 straight games, so they might be in a bounce-back mode here. Like I said, they just lost as a big favorite to Campbell. I think maybe they were looking ahead to this game against UNC Wilmington, so that probably means they're going to show up. However, UNC Wilmington's going to show up in this game as well. William & Mary already beat UNC Wilmington at home, so there is a little bit of a revenge motive here. Again, I don't think it's revenge, but it's more like that team will make the adjustments. UNC Wilmington's coming back home from being on the road for 3 games, which isn't that easy, but I think they're absolutely going to show up for this. I think it does come down to which one of these teams is the better team, and I do think it is Wilmington, and that is what the money is saying. They're up from 5-5 with juice here. 65% of tickets on William & Mary. It looks like the public kind of wants to take the points here, even though William & Mary's record is a little bit ugly, and at this point, I actually think William & Mary might be better than their record looks, but the cash is on Wilmington here, 90% of the cash. I'm not going to disagree with it, really. I think there is an argument to be made that both of these teams are overperforming. Wilmington's 86th in KenPom's luck index. William & Mary 142nd, so I don't know. And then Wilmington will try to slow this thing way down, though. So the home team may have a bit of an advantage in this matchup because this is going to be a bit of a pacing contrast here. Wilmington's going to try to slow it down. William & Mary wants to speed the game way up, and if Wilmington is able to throw them out of their element, they might be able to get it done by making them uncomfortable by slowing it down. Wilmington is just the slightly better team. Well, actually, wait a minute. Where did KenPom have Wilmington? Yes, he has Wilmington about 30 ranking spots higher, and he has Wilmington as the somewhat better team on both sides of the ball as well. So both teams are fairly balanced, just Wilmington's the better team. So do with that info what you want. And then kind of a lot of situational setups in this conference. NCAA is at Charleston. NCAA, again, they almost pulled off that upset against Drexel. Now they're playing a 3rd straight road game. They played close as an underdog in the first 2 of them. They might just run out of steam here, man. I mean, they should show up mentally for a game against Charleston, but coming off a game where they almost pulled off an upset that was of a decent magnitude, and Charleston is coming off a scare themselves against Northeastern because they pulled off a pretty nice win over Hofstra the game before that. So Charleston may bounce back from this and show up with some focus after that scare. The one issue with them is they do have UNC Wilmington on deck, and that's going to be a TV game in their next game. So that is one concern there, whereas Wilmington's not going to overlook their TV game here against William & Mary to have Charleston on deck here, but Charleston may still overlook NCAA for that reason. Charleston is up from 10.5 to 11 here, though. I probably would still lay the points if I was going to look at it because I do think what happened in their previous game matters a little bit more. So you have a team that almost pulled off an upset as a pretty big underdog against a team that got a scare as a pretty big favorite. So I like to look for the favorite in those situations. All right. North Florida, West Georgia. I took a look at this and I'm thinking, well, North Florida's in a terrible spot because they just played really close against Lipscomb. They had a big game against Lipscomb and only lost by 6. Lipscomb is still one of the best teams in this Atlantic Sun Conference. And they have Queens on deck, and Queens is near the top of the conference as well. So I'm thinking, all right, this is a sandwich spot here. But then I'm looking at it more, and I'm like, well, they lost at home to West Georgia. That's who they're playing today. So there is a road revenge motive here for North Florida. So there is the possibility that West Georgia overlooks them for that reason. And then I look at West Georgia, I'm like, oh, crap, they're in a sandwich spot here too, because they just played really close against, not a sandwich spot, but excuse me, they're in a letdown spot or hangover spot at the very least because they just played Austin P, who is actually atop the conference right now, and West Georgia played them to within 3, so they could be in a pretty big hangover spot themselves. And the fact that they already beat North Florida on the road, they might not take North Florida that seriously here. So that is the concern there. Both teams are in bad spots, man. West Georgia down from 7 to 6.5. You know, because of the road revenge motive, I guess I would lean towards North Florida, plus the points there. Both teams being in bad spots, though. It's got to be a stay away from me there. Brad, what's up, man? Thanks for hanging out. No, the Predators lost. What are you talking about? Mammoth were a win, yes. Kansas City was complete bullshit. Denver is definitely not pretty, and I will disagree with Denver right now because that's the next game I'm going to talk about. North Dakota State is coming off almost losing and having to go to overtime as big favorites to beat South Dakota. This is the reason why I faded South Dakota last night, because that was a huge game. But as I always say, when a favorite gets a scare like that and they almost lose, I think they show up with focus in the next game. So I would lean to North Dakota State in this one. They did already beat Denver on the road, but they only beat them by 5. So they might actually take Denver seriously for that reason, because I'm pretty sure North Dakota State was a bigger favorite than that here. So I believe Denver must have covered. No, I'm wrong. My mistake. North Dakota State was only 4.5 in that game. But even so, I mean, coming off a scare like that, I would play North Dakota State or leave the game alone. They're the way better team. They should be in a focus spot here. Denver, they're coming off a loss to Omaha. I don't know if that matters that much. Yeah, they should show up, obviously, for a game against North Dakota State. But if the better team at North Dakota State is focused, I would not want to fade them. I would lean to North Dakota State in this one. But the money looks like it is disagreeing with me for what it's worth. They're up from 11 to 11.5. So the initial move was on the Bison at North Dakota State. But we have 50-50 on the tickets and 91% of the cash on Denver. I'm staying away from it personally. I kind of lean towards North Dakota State, but that's you know, I mean, do your own thing. But that's the way that I look at that game. And then Omaha at North Dakota. I don't really like the spot North Dakota is in either, because they just pulled off a big upset. They were like 14.5 point underdogs against St. Thomas, and in revenge mode, a home revenge spot, road reversal revenge, whatever you want to call it, because they lost at home already to St. Thomas. Huge upset that they pulled off there. So I see them being in a letdown spot here. Maybe it's a concern that they lost to Omaha already on the road, so maybe they will show up for Omaha here for that reason. But I don't like how it sets up. I think North Dakota is in a letdown spot here. Omaha is on a 3-game win streak. They just beat Denver on the road. I don't think that's really a big deal. So the spot, to me, it is better for Omaha here. Although they do have North Dakota State on deck, so that is the concern. This is also going to be a third road game in 4 games and a second straight road game. Maybe a concern with North Dakota State on deck, because that is their that's going to be road revenge, because they lost at home to North Dakota State. But, of course, North Dakota State is the best team in this conference. So, yeah, this one I lean towards Omaha in this one. North Dakota, is -2, 50-50 on the tickets, 89% of the cash on Omaha. I agree with that one. I think it's a letdown spot for North Dakota there off that win over St. Thomas there. So pretty straightforward letdown spot situation there. But then again, like I said, North Dakota, they are in a little bit of a revenge spot there as well. So I don't know. It just keeps me off of it just a little bit. Because if Omaha did already beat North Dakota, there's the potential they will overlook them for North Dakota State, you know. So that's what my worry is there. I'm like trying to go through it in my head again. I'm like, wait, what was I thinking? Lindenwood at Little Rock in the Ohio Valley. I don't have a good gauge on the Ohio Valley, really. Little Rock, they're on this 4-game slide all on the road, but they did just have a huge game against conference leader Tennessee Martin. Little Rock came really close to pulling off that upset, so I worry about them coming off of that game where they almost pulled off the upset. And they already beat Lindenwood on the road, too, so there is the potential they don't take Lindenwood that seriously, although when a team's lost 4 games in a row, usually they're going to try to show up and finally get a win. But that was a big game where they almost pulled off the upset against UT Martin. And again, Lindenwood did already beat Lindenwood on the road, so they might overlook them for that reason. Lindenwood just lost at home to SIU Edwardsville. I think they will show up for a little bit of road revenge here where more I think it might be that Little Rock overlooks them. But the concern with Lindenwood here is that they do have Tennessee Martin, SEMO, and Tennessee State all on deck. Those are the top 3 teams in the conference all on deck. So the worry is that they might still look past Little Rock a little bit for that reason. So I'm not going to play the game, but I would lean towards Lindenwood. Little Rock did flip from +1 to a pick'em, and it looks like they're a small favorite here now, but I would lean towards Lindenwood as a small underdog here. If you can get like a point or so on that, probably the way I would look, or a money line price or whatever. Not going to be on my card, though, but I think Lindenwood is the better side there. Abilene Christian and Utah Valley. Utah Valley is still the best team in the WAC, and the only time they played Abilene Christian, they did lose pretty disgustingly by 17 on the road. Abilene Christian's not having a good season, so I kind of expect Utah Valley to bounce back here and get the win and probably the cover here this time in revenge. Abilene Christian's not going to overlook them, though. They've lost 5 games in a row, including losing in their last game to a pretty ugly Southern Utah team, so that would be my concern with that, is that Abilene Christian is still not going to overlook Utah Valley here, even though I'd probably prefer laying the points in that one. The money's not really agreeing. Utah Valley dropped from 13.5 to 13, 75% of the tickets and 98% of the cash on Abilene Christian. So that's the information for you there. Not really a strong read, but I thought it was just interesting to talk about. Dirty Sock, what's up? Thanks for hanging out. All right, Ohio State and Maryland. There is this Big Ten game on Fox Sports 1 at 8:30 p.m. Eastern. Ohio State is coming off a decent game against Wisconsin. I mean, the game wasn't really that close down the stretch, but they also do have Michigan on deck in revenge. And Ohio State, Michigan, that is a huge thing. So given this setup and the fact they have a third road game in 4 games now, and they have to travel to the East Coast for this to play this very weak Maryland team that nobody's really paying attention to, I don't love how it sets up for Ohio State. Maryland just got blown out back at home by Purdue, and they're just staying at home. So you got to think they're going to show up here at least. They've been embarrassed in their last 2 games, man, losing by over 40 at Michigan State and then losing by 30 at home to Purdue. This Maryland team is way down this year. They suck, I know, but the only way that I could look at this game would be to fade Ohio State. Ohio State is up from 7 to 7.5 here. They're going to be public. 89% of the tickets and only 83% of the cash on them. It'll be a TV game, so the line will probably be a bit skewed towards Ohio State as well. You could kind of make the argument they're in a sandwich spot. It is a weird travel spot at the very least. I would have to take the points with Maryland, like I said, if I was going to play that game. Western Illinois at Tennessee Tech, just for Brad. Tennessee Tech, yeah, I probably agree with this one. They just pulled off an upset over Tennessee State. In-state rival Tennessee State, who's second in the conference. That was definitely a pretty sizable upset there for Tennessee Tech. 7.5-point underdogs there. So, yeah, they pulled off the upset there. Now they get this Western Illinois team that they beat on the road already. Western Illinois, they don't even have a win in conference yet. They are really, really pitiful. So it's definitely going to be really easy to overlook them. And Eastern Illinois is at least a revenge game for Tennessee Tech. That's their next game, even though Eastern Illinois is not good, but they did beat Tennessee Tech at least. So I guess you could make the argument they're going to look ahead to that one possibly. So, yeah, I agree with Western Illinois here, but, I mean, it is very, very ugly. But, yeah, Western Illinois did just get embarrassed at home by 40 points against UT Martin. I know that's the best team in the conference, but nobody wants to lose by 40 points. So I think they will at least try to show up and try to win this game. I don't disagree with that one. Tennessee Tech up from 8 to 8.5. Yeah, I would take the points with Western Illinois. I don't want to. I mean, it's not on my card, but yeah, that would be the way that I would lean at the very least. And then UT Martin is coming off that escape against Little Rock. So usually that team will show up with more focus here, but the problem is they're facing a bad Southern Indiana team. They already beat by double digits on the road. So there is still the possibility they just look right past this team. They got Moorhead and Lindenwood on deck, and those are at least 2 competitive teams in the conference. So I don't really love it for UT Martin here. Southern Indiana is really bad, but they are coming off a couple losses at home. Might be good for them to just get out of there, try to focus, try to get a win or something. I don't think they're going to win, but they might be able to cover. Tennessee Martin up from 11 to 11.5 here. This game I probably would look towards taking the points with Southern Indiana there, but I don't know because UT Martin is off that escape, so I don't know. But it is a really low total, so it could be a pretty ugly game and tough for them to cover a number like that. I know I've had Tennessee Martin a couple of times this year, but not as a favorite of that magnitude. And then I probably would lean to Tennessee State as well. They're up from 9.5 to 10.5 against Eastern Illinois. Tennessee State, off of that bad upset loss to Tennessee Tech I just talked about, they might be in bounce-back mode coming into this. And they also actually lost at Eastern Illinois already. So Tennessee State, they don't have too many conference losses, and that's one of them. So they have a chance to avenge that loss. So I think they will show up with a solid amount of focus here. I mean, Eastern Illinois is not really going to overlook them either with 3 losses in a row, but they're a pretty bad team. The only way that I would be able to play that game would be to lay it with Tennessee State. All right. ESPN2 has an American Conference game here between Memphis and UAB. People are not going to really want Memphis, I don't think, at this point, even though they do have that name recognition. Their record is just real ugly. So I think people are going to have a tendency to want UAB here, but UAB is not favored by much. They're favored by less than home court at 2.5. So the odds makers are telling you Memphis is actually the better team here. They have had a pretty difficult schedule. I mean, some of their out-of-conference schedule is pretty difficult. Memphis, they haven't been great in conference, so they are coming off a very ugly home loss to Tulane, where I thought that was a bit of a tricky spot because Memphis had blown out Florida Atlantic the prior game, which is a pretty satisfying win. Tulane is very overrated, but Memphis somehow lost to them as a pretty big favorite. So, again, I think it might have been because of the sandwich nature of that spot between FAU and UAB. So I think they will show up for this game, especially because they're in a bounce-back spot now after that loss. I don't believe these teams have played each other yet. I think this might be the only time they play this year. UAB should probably show up as well, though. I mean, they did just get a couple of wins, but beating North Texas is not a great thing this year. So I think both teams will show up, but you might see a little bit of extra motivation out of Memphis, and the line does look a little bit weird. It's actually 1.5 right now, consensus. UAB up from 1 to 1.5. Basically, pick the winner. It's going to look way too easy to play UAB, and the odds makers are telling you they're not actually the better team. So I lean Memphis in that one. Money seems like it agrees with it. 57% of the tickets are on UAB, 83% of the cash on Memphis. I agree with Memphis in that one. UC Santa Barbara, UC Davis in the Big West. UC Santa Barbara, they're on a nice roll here, man. They've won 5 games in a row. They came off beating the previous conference champs, UC San Diego, who are basically playing themselves out in the conference here, man. But they're still, I don't think they're that bad of a team still, UC San Diego. But UC Santa Barbara's on the rise, man. And now they're playing a UC Davis team that actually beat them at UC Santa Barbara. So we got road revenge here for UC Santa Barbara coming into this one, and they're on a nice roll here, coming off an easy win over Fullerton in their last game, Cal State Fullerton. So I don't think they're going to overlook UC Davis, man, because that literally was their last loss that they took, was at home to UC Davis. That was their only home loss in conference. So I don't see them overlooking this game, even though they do have a big game against UC Irvine on deck, who are the conference leaders. So there is still the concern about the look ahead there. But UC Davis is right behind them in the standings, too. So I don't see them overlooking them for those reasons. UC Davis should show up as well. They're coming off an easy win over Cal State Bakersfield. But UC Santa Barbara is the better team, and I would have to lean that way. But you're getting less value on them now. The money looks like it is coming in on that side and agreeing with me. They're up from 2 to 4 here. So odds makers telling you they're the substantially better team here, laying points like that on the road. 62% of the tickets, 66% of the cash on UC Santa Barbara. I do not disagree with it, though. I would lay it if I was going to play that game. All right. What else we got? Well, I don't know. I mean, some of these big, I don't know. Are these big Sky games that interesting? I mean, Northern Colorado and Weber State might be. Northern Colorado is not as bad as their record looks, as I keep saying. They have finally given themselves some momentum with 2 straight wins. They're going to Weber State, who already beat them in Northern Colorado. So there is a little bit of a road revenge angle here. I expect Northern Colorado will show up here. Weber State is coming off a pretty ugly loss, though, at Sacramento State, so I don't see them overlooking this game either, though, even though they did beat Northern Colorado on the road. Northern Colorado's the better team. They're favored on the road here. I would probably lean that way. They're up from 1 to 1.5, basically, here. I would probably lean that way just because they are in revenge mode there, even though I don't know that Weber State would really overlook them, but taking the better team in a game like that kind of makes sense. And then we do have Idaho-Montana State might be the most competitive of these matchups because Idaho is near the top of the conference. They've been playing decently. They just broke a couple of game losing streak with a win against Northern Arizona. It is a third straight road game for them, though, which is not going to be easy. And they actually beat Montana State, who was their opponent tonight, at home already. So Montana State may show up with a little bit more focus here in this one, even though I think Montana State actually covered at Idaho. I think Idaho might have been a 3.5-point favorite in that one. I forget, though. But Montana State is coming off losing to Portland State. Now, that was a big game. Portland State's atop the conference, so you could make the argument they're going to be hung over after that. But I think it depends how close the game was. And it was fairly close down the stretch. It was within 5 points late, so I guess I could see that argument of the hangover spot there. The market read is kind of pointing towards Idaho with a little bit of a drop on Montana State as the 3-point favorite. Though I don't really have a good opinion on this one, though. I was slightly leaning towards Montana State, though, because they did already take that loss to Idaho. But I don't know. Thinking about it a little bit more, maybe because Idaho, I don't think, covered in that first game. Idaho should be focused here as well. I don't know. Maybe I do actually somewhat lean towards Idaho getting the points out. I think about it a little bit more. I don't know, man. So I don't know. Those are the big Sky games that are more competitive, that had some interest. CBS Sports has Jacksonville State at Western Kentucky. Kind of an ugly Conference USA game, even though Jacksonville State is closer to the top of the conference. Western Kentucky is not too bad, though. Jacksonville State just lost a 3-game winning streak with a loss at Missouri State, where I think they were about 4.5-point dogs in that one. And they played pretty tough against Missouri State, who's near the top of the conference as well. Now on a third straight road game. And they have a revenge game against Kennesaw on deck. So I kind of worry about Jacksonville State here, man, that this might not be the best spot for them. They also already beat Western Kentucky by 11 at home. So there's a little bit of a revenge motive for Western Kentucky here, too. There is the possibility of Jacksonville State overlooking them, even though Western Kentucky is actually the better team. Interestingly enough, as the odds makers are actually telling you, like, why would they be laying points when they have almost a worse record and their conference record is worse? Well, the odds makers are telling you they're actually the better team. Western Kentucky just broke a 4-game losing streak with a win on the road. It was a good win against Middle Tennessee that I think it was probably an upset. But Middle Tennessee, I mean, I don't think teams are just taking them seriously at this point, really, though, because they just got a bad record, even though I think Middle Tennessee is one of the unluckiest teams in the country. I think they're a lot better power ratings-wise than their record looks, but these teams don't really think about that type of thing. So I think that win is just a good confidence-building win for Western Kentucky coming into this one. I think the spot sets up better for Western Kentucky here, erasing their losing streak. Jacksonville State already beat them once. Looks like Jacksonville State is setting up as a public underdog here, too. 67% of tickets on them, only 52% of the cash. Western Kentucky down from 5 to 4.5 here. I would lay the points with Western Kentucky if I was going to play that one. That's a TV game there. And then we have my last play of the day in college basketball, because they do have one more. Hindian, what's up, man? The last play, best bets here for college basketball. This one is real ugly, man. I'm a little bit concerned about it, but it's about the spot. We're going to take Cal State Bakersfield plus 16.5 and kind of hope that UC Irvine is going to slow this thing down, because Irvine is at this point, they're the best. I think they're the best team in this conference at this point, probably maybe Hawaii. The money looks like it's agreeing with me on this, by the way. Irvine did initially go up to 16.5. We have 67% of tickets and 98% of the cash on Bakersfield. And where I'm going with this is mostly the situation. This is a sandwich spot that UC Irvine is in, man, as they just beat UC San Diego on the road 2 games ago in a very competitive matchup. And UC San Diego, of course, won the conference last year and did it by beating UC Irvine in the final. And Irvine had been one of the better teams in the conference for years leading into that. So that was a huge revenge game for UC Irvine. That was a big game, but they did not suffer a letdown in the next game because they got to host Hawaii, who was atop the conference. And Irvine, with beating Hawaii, took sole possession of first place in the conference. So those are two massive wins for UC Irvine. Now they got Cal State Bakersfield here, who they already beat on the road, although they only beat them by 4. But still, they did beat them on the road. Although the one concern, I guess, was that they were 11.5-point favorites and only got by 4. So I know that is an angle that sometimes I use where when a team is a big favorite in the first conference matchup, if they fail to cover, sometimes they will take that team seriously, but I still don't see it here, man. Coming off 2 monster wins like that, and the fact they did win on the road against Bakersfield already, and up next, they have the team that's next in the standings. It's basically tied with Hawaii, half game behind them, UC Santa Barbara. That's who they play next. So that's going to be a huge game up next. So this is absolutely a sandwich spot. So we're going to take Bakersfield in this one, even though, yes, I realize they're really, really bad. I know. They're on a huge skid right now. They're on a 6-game skid, but we don't need them to win this game. We just need them to cover. But I think since they've lost 6 games in a row, you at least, I think, know you're going to get some effort out of them at the very least. They put in some effort in their most recent game against UC Davis, only losing by 8. They were 5.5-point dogs in this one, so they didn't cover. This was at home at Cal State Bakersfield. It was a fairly close game for them. So, yeah, I know they're coming off a decent performance against a decent team, but they're not going to overlook UC Irvine here, man. So I think you'll at least get an effort out of them here. And looking at Ken Baum's numbers, actually, he does have Hawaii is better than UC Irvine by about 20 ranking spots. UC Irvine's very good on defense, but they're very lopsided. They don't score well. They're 28th defensively, according to Ken Baum, but their offense is pretty bad outside of the top 250. So that's not great when you're trying to cover a massive number like this, right? Like, that's more the style of team is going to be playing a low-scoring game, right? Because they can't score, but they also are really good defensively, and that's kind of what we want here. We want this to be an ugly, low-scoring game where we can just get this Bakersfield team to just get in with under this number here. Because obviously I'm not saying they're going to win the game, although I would still put like maybe 1% of the bet on the money line just to do it. But UC Irvine's a mid-tempo team, but because of their lack of offense, they don't play in these high-scoring games, man. And they are a little bit lucky, according to Ken Baum, at 147. Bakersfield is also lucky, unfortunately, according to Ken Baum. Like, they should even be worse than what their record is. But both teams are kind of on the lucky side of things, so I'm going to consider that to be a bit of a wash. Bakersfield does like to play fast, but Irvine is probably going to slow the game down a bit for that reason. But I like that more because if Irvine wants to slow the game down more and points are going to be more to premium, let them do it because that means it'll be more difficult, I think, for them to cover a number like this. Bakersfield, I know they're really bad on both sides of the ball. They're outside of the top 300 on both offense and defense. I get it. There's not much to like, but what we like is the spot here, man. And that it seems like the money might actually be agreeing with me now. And the total's not particularly high at 144.5. So I think we might get a situation where points are going to be somewhat at a premium. So hopefully we can get a situation where Bakersfield can hopefully, if they can hit like high 50s in a game like this, they might be able to cover. So hopefully we can get that, man. And yeah, I think that's pretty much all I was going to talk about as far as these games today. Well, we do have Tarleton at Cal Baptist. Cal Baptist is actually pretty much tied atop the WAC with Utah Valley right now, so they're probably the second best team in the WAC. They're coming off a win over UT Arlington. There was a decent win because UT Arlington was actually tied with them basically, or ahead of them actually in conference standings, and they beat Utah Valley the game before that too. So Cal Baptist is coming off 2 pretty big wins. However, they did lose on the road to Tarleton already, so they might actually show up for Tarleton just for that reason. But they could be in a letdown spot here. Tarleton is coming into this on a bunch of losses in a row, whatever this is, 6 straight losses, including a home loss to Utah Tech, which was real ugly. So, I don't know. I would probably lean towards Tarleton in that one and towards the letdown spot for Cal Baptist. They're up from 9.5 to 10. looks like it's going to be an ugly game with a total at 140, so not necessarily a game where you want to lay a ton of points. 50% of tickets, 54% of the cash on Tarleton, so the money looks like it is kind of agreeing with Tarleton. I won't disagree with that, but that's it for college basketball for me, man. So you got my opinions there. And again, if I was going to add any other plays, I think it would be Drexel and I don't know what's going on outside, man. I hear a bunch of stupid horns beeping or whatever. Drexel, and then I think maybe Omaha. I like those two. So, yeah, I mean, do with that info what you want, I guess. Maybe those are a couple of the stronger opinions that I would have there. Although it looks like the money's coming in on North Dakota now in that North Dakota and Omaha game, so I don't know. But there's no way I would play North Dakota off of that monster upset. So, all right. Last NHL day before we get a 2-week break for the Olympics, which at least, again, it gives me a little bit less to have to do, so gives me a break. Pittsburgh at Buffalo was the first game up. Pittsburgh is coming off 2 straight losses here. Maybe they'll be in a little bit of a bounce-back mode here. They're having to play a third game in 4 days, though, all in different cities, and they did play the Islanders into overtime in a game where I liked the spot for the Islanders in that one, and they did get the job done. But it was a close game, and the Islanders have played well this year, so Pittsburgh, they're going to have to play a big effort game 2 games in a row here in different cities, so that doesn't make it that easy. But the spot is worse for Buffalo here. Buffalo's returning from Florida, and I know it was a quick Monday, Tuesday road trip, but they are playing a third game in 4 days as well, all in different cities, and they're having to travel back up from Florida. And they upset Florida when they were down there, and they almost upset Tampa Bay, losing in overtime pretty much in brutal fashion in that game. So I do think the spot is worse for Buffalo for those reasons, and it is technically a return home spot, although it's not like they were away from home that long. But I think that the hangover spot for them is going to be worse coming up that Tampa Bay game, plus the travel is worse, whereas Pittsburgh is staying in the state of New York. So I would lean to Pittsburgh in this game. Buffalo is down from -130 to -119. They're going to be the public side, it looks like. 74% of tickets and cash on Buffalo. I still don't really buy either of these teams being particularly great, to be honest. But in that spot, I think Pittsburgh is the lean. New York Islanders at New Jersey. Islanders are staying in the New York area, so not much of a travel spot here. They're playing a third game in 4 days, with the first game having been in Washington, though. So it is technically a third game in 4 days, all in different cities. But again, with the last 2 just being in Queens and then going to New Jersey, not really much of a trip there. They did just beat Pittsburgh in overtime. Now, I don't know if they're going to consider that to be a big win or not, but I think the main factor here is they might not take New Jersey seriously, because what happened the last time the Islanders played New Jersey? Oh, well, the Islanders beat them 9-0 at the Islanders back on January 6th in Queens. So they might not take New Jersey seriously for that reason. And New Jersey might have a bit of an extra motivation here, because that was one of their most embarrassing losses that they've ever had, man, probably. So I like New Jersey in this one. And they're also coming off another embarrassing loss where they got shut out at home yet again against Columbus, and now they're staying at home off of that. They've lost 4 of 5 games. They also are a bit more rested because they had not a big break, but they had 2 days off prior to that Columbus game. So they're more rested here too. So the only way I could look at this game is to play the Devils. I kind of like it, actually. This is one of the stronger opinions for me in hockey today. It's not the play that I have, but I like it. The Islanders are down from -110 to -108. 79% of tickets are on the Islanders. 52% of the cash on New Jersey. My hesitation is really just how bad of a spot is it really for the Islanders. But they just might not take the Devils seriously. So, yeah, money agrees with me on the Devils. That is the only way I would look at that game, is Devils money line. Carolina is at the Rangers. We get another Rangers home game here. The Rangers have been putrid at home. Carolina's coming off 2 straight wins that they barely got by Ottawa in their last game. They do have to travel up to New York, though, for this one final game before the break, so maybe they're not going to be down to do that. They did just play the Rangers at home back on December 29th and had to go to overtime to beat them. But I don't know how seriously they're going to take this trip up to New York, man, to be honest, because Carolina might just be okay coasting into the break at this point. For the Rangers, They've lost 6 of 7 games. They've lost 3 more games in a row. They haven't played since January 31st. So they've had a big break here, man, and that's good when you're losing. I think having a break is a good thing because you get to bust out of that losing momentum. So I think I would have to lean towards the Rangers here, even though they are really bad at home. 6-14-4 at home, unbelievably bad. And Carolina is pretty solid on the road at 14-7-4. But in a spot like this, I think I have to lean towards the Rangers, but I'm not going to get there with it either. I just can't do it, but you're getting a huge underdog price with them, so you might be able to find a puck line that's at a pretty reasonable price there. For them to come within 1 goal seems like a reasonable ask here. Carolina down from -220 to -205. That's how bad the Rangers are and how much disrespect they're getting in the market now. Carolina's a massive road favorite against them. Carolina is one of the best teams in hockey, though, so that's also part of the reason why that's the case. They're going to be a public side. It looks like 88% of the tickets, 93% of the cash on Carolina for now. We'll see how that shakes out, but probably I would be looking to the Rangers puck line there. Next game up is my actual play. So let's go to it, man. We're going to be right back on the Philadelphia Flyers again, and they treated us well, I think, in their last game, but we're doing it again. Philadelphia Flyers. All right, we're going to fade Ottawa here. Ottawa just lost a 4-game win streak, and I talk about when teams lose win streaks, sometimes it'll hang them over. They're playing a 3rd game in 4 days, all in different cities, where they won at Pittsburgh, had to go down to Carolina Monday, Tuesday. Now, before the break, they come back up, and they have to play this Philadelphia team that's been struggling. I don't know if I see it, man, even if it is going to be Ullmark back in net here, and they did win both of his games since he came back, and he is definitely their best goalie, that is true, but I don't like the spot, man. A lot of times when a team loses a win streak, they'll be hung over, and the way they lost that win streak, they lost at Carolina by 1 goal in a close game, where the game was tied 3-3 in the final, 5 minutes of the game, basically, and they gave up the game-winning goal to Carolina at that point. That is brutal. After Ottawa had erased a 3-1 deficit in the game, too. So pretty brutal way to lose that game for Ottawa. So I do not like how they roll into this game, man. And for Philadelphia, they just broke a losing streak. So they're on the opposite end of momentum here, where they had a 4-game losing streak and ended it with that win over Washington. So we got the win with them in that game. It was a good setup, and I think it is again, actually, because they're staying at home, and they had 2 days off coming into that game. So they're more rested here, and they've had way less travel. They've been at home since January 31st and had a break in between there. So the spot is way better, in my opinion, for the Flyers here. That's what we're going to go with. The Flyers are my one play today in hockey. The market read looks like it's all over it. You'll be able to get a decent underdog price on them. It's a money line play here. Ottawa's up from -120 to -135. 69% of tickets are on Ottawa. 80% of the cash coming back on Philly, though. So I expect at some point this line's going to start dropping back towards Philly. We'll see. I don't think it's going to get into that range where I'd go, you got to make your own puck line or whatever. But yes, I like the Flyers in that one. Again. All right. Nashville and Washington first, sorry. That Florida-Tampa Bay game is probably the best game of the night, though. Nashville is coming into this off of playing last night and losing in overtime for us. Pissed off about it still. It was a back-and-forth game, crazy high-scoring game against a pretty decent Minnesota team. Went into overtime. I just don't like this, man. Now Nashville has to travel to Washington before we're going into the break off of that huge effort. Doesn't look good to me for Nashville. For Washington, they did not play yesterday. They lost to Philadelphia in their last game, but they are playing a 3rd game in 4 days with travel between all of that. But Washington to Philadelphia is not a huge travel leg, so I don't think that's that big of a deal. They're back at home. Yes, they will have revenge against Philadelphia after the break, but I don't think that matters. They're coming home off of a loss. They did lose a winning streak with that loss, but based on what Nashville did yesterday and the fact they have to travel to a spot where maybe they don't even want to be there, I would have to lean towards Washington here, but the money is all over Nashville in this game, and I do not understand it at all. I would not want to do that. Washington dropped from -190 to -157 here. I don't know if there is a goaltending switch here or whatever, but I don't even think Washington has a huge disparity between their goalies anyway, so I don't know what's going on here. 63% of the tickets on Washington, 87% of the cash on Nashville. So there's a huge market read on Nashville here, but I don't understand it. And if I don't understand it, I won't play the game. And I actually lean in the opposite way towards Washington based on how I handicap it. So that game I'm definitely leaving alone. Florida at Tampa Bay, huge game on Hulu. This is a big game, man. And these teams don't like each other. They're both in Florida, of course. Tampa Bay is now the better of the two teams, so they've overtaken Florida after Florida won the Stanley Cup the last 2 years. Maybe Florida will be playing with a little bit of a chip on their shoulder, but the problem is Florida just beat my Boston Bruins in a crazy shootout win last night after the Bruins actually came back in that game to tie the game from down 2 goals and fell just short. Bruins are going to need this Olympic break, man, after going all out in those 2 Florida games. At least they have the break now. They're not having to play a game coming off those 2 games because that was crazy. Florida did get the win, and they broke a 4-game win streak, but they're on a back-to-back, having to go to Tampa Bay, and that was a wild game against the Bruins last night. So, not the Minnesota Wild, so I don't know if it's a great spot for Florida here, man, even though generally I would say, yeah, they probably have a chip on their shoulder here playing against Tampa Bay after Tampa Bay has now become the better team in Florida. Tampa Bay has won 4 games in a row. They had a crazy shootout with the same final score, I think, 6-5. Or was it 5-4 for Florida last night? I don't even remember. Whatever. Yes, it was, but almost the same score. Tampa did do that, and then Tampa beat Buffalo after that in overtime. But Tampa, they've been staying in Tampa this whole time. So the spot, to me, it does look a little bit better for Tampa. No travel and a day off here. And maybe they consider that game against Buffalo to be an escape, although probably Florida's game last night was an escape as well. The money is all coming in on Florida here, so the market read is saying Florida, but I have a lot of concerns with it. Tampa Bay down from -220 to -175 on the money line here. 67% of tickets on them, 79% of the cash coming back on Florida. Again, I worry about it, and I think Florida is probably... I think Bobrovsky played last night, so it's probably not going to be him in net, so they're probably going with... Tarasov, who's not their better goalie. So that would be a concern for Florida as well, man. I don't know if Tampa's going to go with Vasilevsky again or not going into the break. Maybe based on the line movement here, maybe they're switching it back to Johansson for this game, and maybe that's why the line moved like that. I don't know, but I can't really see a Florida play in this game, man. Even though I think they do consider themselves to kind of be a little brother at this point against Tampa Bay. I just don't like the spot. But the money is all over Florida. 79% of the cash on them and 67% of the tickets on Tampa. Do with that information what you want. But my slight opinion would be in the opposite direction. But I think I have a stronger opinion on Washington than on Tampa Bay there. And then we have LA at Vegas. Probably a good thing for LA. They get to go out on the road because they stink at home. And they just lost that game yesterday against Seattle. We got the win there. That was a terrible spot for LA, returning home from a long road trip off a huge game to finish the road trip. And with this game looming on deck, awful spot. I know Seattle was in the back-to-back, but they got it done for us. They had their primary goalie in net for us there as well, I'm pretty sure. My man from the Boston area, DeCord. So now the Kings are on a back-to-back. They do have to travel to Vegas, but, maybe it's not that bad of a spot for them because they're looking to bounce back here. I think they were overlooking their opponent yesterday, Seattle. Don't think it matters which goalie they have. They kind of alternate between the two. And the Kings are a lot better on the road. Like I said, they're 15-7-7 on the road, and they're way worse at home. So the Kings are definitely better on the road. The Knights haven't been that great at home, really. 13-8-7. So they have had a lot of overtime games, a lot of overtime losses at home. They're not like a dominant home team at the very least right now. For Vegas, they're coming into this game off of breaking a losing streak. They actually played yesterday as well. They broke a 5-game losing streak with an easy win over Vancouver, though. So given the fact that LA does have to travel here, Vegas is in a spot where it might be a positive spot as well with some new momentum. I probably lean Vegas here, but the money is coming in on the Kings. Vegas down from -145 to -125. 60% of tickets, 90% of the cash on the Kings. I don't quite love it, man. But the odds makers are telling you something here with Vegas now being at basically almost less than home ice here. They're telling you there's not much of a disparity between these two teams right now, which is kind of an insane thing to think about. So the line does make it look a little bit too easy to play Vegas in that game. So I don't know. I'm staying away, but again, do with all this information what you want. Let's go to NBA, which handicapping the NBA today is not something that I love. There's just a lot of moving parts, a lot going on in the NBA today. The first game up is Washington at Detroit, and my standard read on this is that Detroit is in a sandwich spot. Washington, of course, didn't get anything done for us the other night. They got blown out by the Knicks. When they caught the Knicks in a bad spot, didn't even matter. But now, Washington, you got to worry about all these trades that just happened, because when teams have all these new faces coming in, it takes a while to adjust to it, and you have to get chemistry. So I worry about that a little bit with Washington having new guys coming in here. So that might be a concern for Washington here. Although they're coming off a blowout loss, and you got to think that maybe going out on the road will be a good thing, and that they should at least focus on Detroit, whereas Detroit, they just beat Denver. That was a nice win on Tuesday, and they have the Knicks upcoming on tomorrow on Prime. So they're pretty much in a sandwich spot here. So Detroit is definitely not in a good spot. But looking at the line, it's dropped a little bit it dropped from 17 to 15 here with the Pistons. 63% of tickets on them, 65% of the cash. Now, with the Pistons, I'm pretty tempted to give out a play on the Wizards again here. Some of it is going to depend on what's going on with Cade Cunningham, because he's, of course, the key player for the Pistons here, and he might not play in this game just because I guess he has a wrist thing, but it's more like injury management. But if he's out, does that mean that Detroit's really going to step up their game against Washington, or are they still going to overlook Washington? And that's kind of the question here, man, because I do like Washington. Otherwise, I think it's a pretty bad spot for Detroit, to be honest. I think it's a sandwich spot. And typically, I'd be on Washington in this game, but now I'm like, I don't know. Should I be is the question, because I do have one play here, but I'm tempted to give this out as a play despite all these moving parts here. Let me see what the trade actually involved for Washington here. Well, the Wizards traded for Anthony. Wait, did they get Anthony Davis? Yeah, they did, but that doesn't matter because he's not going to play. So you know what? I think maybe we can play Washington here because the main piece of that trade was Anthony Davis, but he's clearly not going to play. I don't even know when the last time he played was. And I guess Washington got Exum from Dallas in another trade, but he's not going to play either. He's hurt. So it doesn't even matter, really. These guys are out anyway. So I don't think that matters, man. Davis has been out for over a month. I don't know when he's coming back. But I don't think there's any way he's coming back. Like, he's not going to play tonight. So, you know what? Let's do it. If Cunningham's not going to play and the word comes out that he's not going to play, the line might actually drop a little bit. So I think maybe taking Washington now makes sense. If it's announced that he's going to play, there is that worry that maybe the Pistons will wind up being a bit of a bigger favorite. So that's the risk. It's like, when do you want to play this game is the question. You can get 15 right now, though, on Washington. You know what? Let's do it. Even though they're really on my bad side right now. We'll do Washington plus 15. So I'm going to wind up with 5 plays here. Hang on. I apologize. I'm putting in the banner right now. StreamYard is not being good right now. All right, there we go. All right, we'll do it. Washington plus 15. There's that play. All right. Brooklyn is at Orlando. This is a pretty ugly game, man. Brooklyn did get pretty much destroyed by LA in their last game. It was a terrible spot for Brooklyn, though, returning home from a long road trip. The money was seemingly indicating on Brooklyn as kind of being the professional side. I didn't like it. You know me. I'm just going to avoid these teams returning home. Even if they're playing a good team like the Lakers, they got smacked anyway. The Lakers have had Austin Reeves back for a little while now, too, by the way. But now that Brooklyn's coming off that, another bad loss, it was in a bad spot. Maybe it'll be good for them to just leave again, go out on the road, play Orlando. Orlando hasn't been playing very well, but Orlando probably should show up in this game as well. But they are returning home from a road trip, although it was a quick road trip. It was just Sunday, Tuesday, losing both games to San Antonio and Oklahoma City. I like to fade teams returning home from long road trips, but when you're only gone for a couple of days, stuff doesn't really pile up at home to do, although Brooklyn is still not really a team that's going to draw your focus. But I don't know. When you've lost 2 games in a row and your only game up next is Utah, I don't know, man. I mean, the money is still coming in on the Nets in this one. The Magic are down from 11.5 to 10.5 here. 65% of tickets on them. 67% of the cash on the Nets. So the market read is saying the Nets here. I'm not going to disagree with that, but I don't want anything to do with it. I don't see a strong situation here at all. I think it might just be more a numbers play. Got to check to see if Wagner's playing. He's not playing, so I don't know. I don't know when he's coming back, but it would have been a reverse injured player spot if he was coming back for Orlando, but he's still out. Utah at Atlanta. Utah just ended a losing streak with a win, so they had a long losing streak. They'd lost, I think, 6 games in a row, and they finally got a win over Indiana, so I think that will give them some momentum moving forward. It wasn't like a huge win that's going to set up a letdown spot, so I like it when a team gets a win like that. It can propel them forward, breaking a losing streak, but the problem is, we got to see, like, these new pieces that Utah got, like, are they going to play or not? Jaren Jackson, especially, is, like, the biggest guy that they got here. He's not playing yet, so we don't have to worry about that for Utah. So there shouldn't be a concern for Utah tonight about, like, the chemistry shifts and stuff that might go on. For Atlanta, they got a decent win on the road against Miami. They're returning home from a road trip now that was a road trip that started on Saturday the 31st. So it was only a 2-game road trip. Still a road trip return, though, where they were away for, close-ish to a week. So they still might be a little bit unfocused coming into this one. And they got a hot Charlotte team on deck and then Minnesota. So it is possible they overlook Utah. I like the fact that Utah kind of broke that momentum there. So I would prefer taking the points with the Jazz in this game if I was going to play it. Hawks are down from 11 to 9.5 here. So some market movement already against the Hawks here. 66% of tickets, 69% of the cash on the Hawks. So the cash percentage looks like it might be coming back on the Hawks. The Hawks did just trade Porzingis away, although he wasn't really playing that much anyway, so I don't know how big of a deal that really is. He went to Golden State. The Hawks got Kuminga, I guess. I don't know if he's going to play tonight. Don't even know if that matters that much. Oh, wait, did they get Kuminga? I don't even know. Yeah, they did. And Buddy Hield, but I think they're both out today anyway, so that's not going to really matter. But I would lean to the Jazz in that game. Chicago at Toronto is on Amazon Prime. Chicago coming off a pretty ugly loss against a Giannis-less Milwaukee team. Not great. Chicago might try to even up the road trip here, finishing the road trip, going to Toronto. I think they're going to be focused, even though they do have Denver next. Toronto's been playing decent this year. Chicago needs a win of some kind, so I don't think they're going to overlook this game. Toronto's coming off a very close call yesterday against Minnesota, so Toronto could be in a bit of a hangover spot after that. I mean, even though they're only a couple-point underdogs there, that was a big game for them, so I would only look towards the Bulls in this game. The Bulls, of course, were doing stuff at the trade deadline as well. The Raptors are an 8.5-point favorite with juice now. 68% of the tickets are on them. 54% of the cash on the Bulls. I agree with the Bulls in that one. Could be a hangover spot there, and it's a back-to-back for Toronto, which I don't love, although they're at least staying at home. Chicago, I mean, I don't know. I'm tempted to make this play here, but we do have Chicago having made some trades here as well. Josh Giddey looks like he's out again. Let me see. What's the situation with Giddey? No, wait. He's not on the injury report. Why is it listing him as out again here? Yeah, he's not playing, so I don't know what the deal is here. Hold on. He didn't play in the Milwaukee game, and they still lost that game, though. So that was really the injured player theory spot. He didn't play, and they still lost. But I believe, didn't the Bulls just trade away, like, White? And, yeah, so they're like, their players won't even be here, really. So the Bulls are going to be pretty thin roster-wise here, man, because they traded White, and I think they traded one of their other guys. I don't know, man. And these guys they got in return might not be there yet, so that's weird. So the Bulls actually are going to have kind of a big chemistry shift. So I think I have to stay away from that game, but I do lean to the Bulls in that game still based on the situation. Charlotte at Houston. Charlotte coming off that game where they somehow escaped and they got that win over New Orleans and pushed our play on the 7 and probably beat a lot of people that had the 6.5. That definitely pisses me off. I thought it was a great spot to play New Orleans, but Charlotte was able to get the job done and continue their momentum here. 7 wins in a row. They're not going to overlook Houston. They do have a couple of days off, which might be a concern because that might hurt their momentum a little bit. But starting a road trip here with momentum, coming off kind of a bad game, they should show up for Houston. Houston's on a back-to-back, and they actually got pretty much blown out at home by the Celtics last night, which is pretty crazy. A really good game for the Celtics last night. Didn't expect that. So Houston did lose when they were favored, but it was to a pretty good Celtic team. And they do have Oklahoma City on deck, so the spot isn't exactly great for Houston here. So, I think I probably lean towards the Hornets in this one. Rockets are down from 4-3 here. It looks way too easy to lay the points with Houston. Oh, they'll bounce back. They lost to the Celtics, People probably still not totally buying into the Hornets. They're just looking at their overall record, but the Hornets are pretty legit, and the odds makers are telling you the Hornets, they're actually telling you the Hornets are better than the Celtics right now because the Rockets were 5-point favorites last night. That's crazy. I mean, some of it is probably because of the back-to-back, though. I don't think the odds makers are really saying that. That would be a little bit too far, but I think the Rockets are a little bit shortchanged on the line because of the back-to-back, but the money's still coming in on Charlotte. 62% of tickets on Houston, 79% of the cash on Charlotte. I'll agree with it, but it's not going to make my card. The next game up is my final play, and we're going to take the Dallas Mavericks +7. We're going to fade San Antonio. They're on a back-to-back, and they were playing late at night last night, and they had a huge win again against Oklahoma City, becoming Oklahoma City's nemesis and winning 4 out of the 5 games against them this year. Crazy. Huge win for San Antonio last night. Now on a back-to-back, they got to go to Dallas and play a Dallas team that they only played once at the beginning of the year, and they did beat them, so they might not take Dallas seriously. Of course, Dallas did trade a couple guys away, but I don't think it matters because they weren't playing anyway. Anthony Davis and Exum, it doesn't matter that they traded those guys because they weren't playing anyway. So I don't think that matters as far as this game is concerned. I don't think Dallas will have whatever new players they got yet. So I think it's fine. There won't be any chemistry shift or anything like that. These teams are actually playing twice in a row, home and home. But I think this is a big letdown spot after San Antonio reproved themselves after they had lost a game to Oklahoma City in the prior game against them. The Dallas is on a 4-game losing streak. They're back at home. They did lose to the Celtics in their last game. They lost at Houston in a close game the game before that. They lost to Charlotte close the game before that. They lost to Minnesota the game before that, and to the Lakers in a close game the game before that. So this stretch for Dallas is not as bad as it looks. None of those teams are bad. So, and most of those losses were close. So Dallas is not actually playing that poorly. And now they're staying at home. They did have a pretty big break before that Celtics game, so they're the more rested team coming into this too. Yeah, we'll take the points with Dallas in this one. Public is definitely on the Spurs, 78% of tickets, only 72% of the cash on them. They're up from 6 to 7 here. I think you can get the +7 in this one. I like it. Dallas is the play in that game. Then we have Golden State at Phoenix, the second game of the Amazon Prime doubleheader. Golden State coming off losing really bad to Philadelphia, losing by almost 20 at home to Philadelphia. So maybe Golden State will show up here. They did trade away Kuminga, but he was kind of a head case there, so that might actually help that they got rid of him, and now they at least know what they're doing. I doubt that Porzingis is going to play for them yet, but I don't think that really matters. I mean, Kuminga hadn't played until Butler went down, so I don't know. So it probably doesn't really matter for Golden State here. Now, Golden State, yeah, they're going on the road. Might be good for them. Just get out of home, go on the road, play a prime game. I don't really think they're going to be looking ahead to the Lakers here. So I think they should show up. Phoenix is coming off a nice win at Portland. Portland's been playing all right. Coming back home, I don't know if they're going to overlook the Warriors. I mean, the Warriors are old and kind of in disarray, though, so I don't know. Phoenix does have Philadelphia up next, and they did already beat Philadelphia on the road not that long ago. So, yeah, maybe both teams will show up for this. The Suns look like they're kind of getting the money right now. They dropped from 6.5 to 6. They're the public side because the public just doesn't really like what they're seeing out of the Warriors recently, and the fact the Warriors are kind of an old, injured team now. 77% of tickets, 87% of the cash on the Suns. Interesting, the odds makers are telling you the Suns are this much better than the Warriors. The fact they're 6.5-point home favorites, and you don't get a lot of home court advantage in the NBA. I guess I would lean to the Suns in that game if both teams do show up, but I don't have a strong opinion on that. And then the 76ers are at the Lakers to finish this off. Philadelphia coming into this on a nice 5-game win streak here. They've been hot. They just won at Golden State in what was probably an upset, I'm guessing. Let me see. Yes, they were 4.5-point underdogs. So Golden State's still getting some respect from the market there. Philadelphia's, of course, moving on without Paul George because he's suspended. But they've been fine so far without him. Sometimes he doesn't play anyway, and he's a little bit of a head case. You got to think that they will show up for a game against the Lakers. The Lakers did get Reeves back, so maybe they will be playing a little bit better now that he's back. But the Lakers are returning home from a long road trip, man. They've been on the road since January 20th. This is one of the longest road trips that I think I've ever seen. An 8-game road trip where they've been on the road for whatever that is, more than 2 weeks. That's just insane, dude. So the fact they're returning home from that and they went basically all over the country, you know what I always talk about. That's a bad spot when a team returns home from a road trip of that magnitude and stuff has been piling up to do at home. Horrible spot, actually. And they do have Golden State up next. I don't know if they're going to overlook that because it is a TV game. And then Oklahoma City, San Antonio all coming up after that. Those are all Western Conference games, and they're all televised in some way, too. So there is a possibility they overlook Philadelphia here. Philadelphia's already in California, coming off a very satisfying win, but with momentum, I think I would have to lean to the Sixers in this one. The money is all over the Lakers, though, up from 3.5 to 4. 61% of tickets, 92% of the cash on the Lakers. No possible way that I could be on the Lakers in that return home spot like that. Absolutely not. I would be leaning the other way towards the Sixers, but it's not a play for me. And that's going to do it, man. Thanks for hanging out, everybody. The plays today, one more time, college basketball. UMass-Lowell plus 1.5. CS-Bakersfield, Cal State Bakersfield plus 16.5. See what numbers you can get on those. Flyers, money line in hockey. NBA, ugly underdog. Washington Wizards are going right back to it. I like abuse, man. We'll let my abuser do it again. And Dallas plus the points. The 7, hopefully you can get on that one. That's going to do it. Thanks, everybody, for hanging out. Learn to Toad on Twitter. Go subscribe to me there. That helps me out. Instagram, you can find my short betting content there. Learn to Toad there as well. Like, subscribe to the channel here. Give me good reviews, etc. That all helps me out. Listen on audio, review on audio. That helps me out as well. Give me replies, I should say, on YouTube. But on audio, Apple, and Spotify, give me reviews there. Or if there's a way to review it on YouTube, yeah, do that too. There probably isn't, though, but maybe. I don't know. Covered in Uke is my Uke channel on YouTube. I want to get more stuff going on over there, but we'll see. But check it out anyway. Patreon.com/LearnToToad for some extra Uke content at the higher levels. Or if you just want to support your boy, it all helps me out, man. And then just support what I'm doing here. And Losercast every Tuesday night, the comedy podcast that I'm on. You can go vote for African-American neighborhoods as my pick this week. That's going to do it. I appreciate it, everybody. Peace. Let's have a good Thursday.